On February 1st, 2024, I filmed what I thought was going to be the There's a Riot Going On episode. I got dressed in a blue ruffled shirt, stars and stripes bell-bottoms, and big hair, well, big-ish. It was day 2, forgive me, to sit in front of a camera, like I've done once a week for 3 years now. After about 2 hours, I wrap up and get to work transferring the footage to my computer. But I look at the raw footage only to find I'd accidentally filmed the whole thing in slow motion. So now I have 5 hours of raw footage. That's like 70 gigs of storage. I didn't even know a camera was capable of that, first of all. The file was so big, I couldn't transfer the footage to my computer to fix the speed, rendering it useless. The whole day was a bust. I'd have to get up, get ready, and do the whole thing again the very next day. So that's what I did. I got up, put on the same blue ruffled shirt and stars and stripes bell-bottoms, and did the best I could to get my now day 3 hair as big as it needed to be. When I wrapped that day, I didn't immediately transfer my footage, because I looked at my phone for the first time in 2 hours to find just a brick of notifications. Alright, who died? And that's how I was wearing a pair of goddamn stars and stripes bell-bottoms when Wayne Kramer died. So welcome back, or welcome if this is your first time here. Vinyl Monday is the who, what, when, where, why, and how do I feel about classic albums in my collection. I also do Vinyl Monday in 60 seconds here on my channel, over on my Instagram, as well as TikTok. But this is not a typical Vinyl Monday. Not even close. Usually I go into all the backstory of the albums I cover. You know, the history of the band and funny little stories from recording. I've already covered all that. This time last year, I made a little video all about my favorite band. Chances are, if you're watching this, you've already seen it. But if not, here's MC5 A Brief History in 60 seconds. How do you make off with a whole ass cello? Perfection. Nuh-uh. Yeah-huh. Parking lot, right now, let's go! We haven't even ordered yet, I wanted to eat, oh my god. These guys got so high, they thought they formed a religion. The CIA building got blown up. Yeah, this is perfect, man! Wah! Cue the motherfuckers rioting. Cue the Hudson's incident. From the little bit I've seen from the trailer, the absurdity of all of this has only just caught up to me. Huh? 30-something takes of Tutti goddamn Fruity. Fred was a legend for this. He's just doofing around. Alright guys, flush your hash and find your passports. Sorry, I just gotta... Some pretty big things have changed since I made A Brief History, and no, it's not just adding the third shelf. I realized a couple weeks ago that Miss X is in fact the best MC5 song. See? I'm a good music critic, I admit when I'm wrong. A long-awaited joint project between Brad Talinsky, Jan Uhelski, and the late Ben Edmonds of Cream is released, and we all have... this. A new MC5 album. It's called Heavy Lifting. It features posthumous appearances from both Wayne and Dennis. They're backed by a whole lot of famous friends, including Tom Morello of Rage Against the Machine, the Gen X MC5 if you will. Vernon Reid of Living Colour, even Slash tips his hat to Wayne and Company on here. Instead of the usual Vinyl Monday, you'll be getting a more casual chit-chat double review. My thoughts on this book and this album. Don't worry kids, don't worry, please don't be upset. To make up for me gutting the formula this week, you will be getting the written reviews of Kick Out the Jams, motherfucker! Back in the USA, High Time, and Heavy Lifting to my website to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of MC5 A Brief History. I want this Heavy Lifting celebration here to serve as a picture of what this past week or so has meant for a young MC5 fan like myself. I think that's a pretty good segue into our first review of 2. The book review. So many of you have been asking for book reviews on this channel, so I feel that's a natural enough place to start this video. My review boils down to this. Holy shit. Holy shit. Would I have killed for this resource a year ago? I don't know who was on the Sound Opinions podcast recently, which host it was that said oral histories were lazy, but I thoroughly disagree. I can only imagine the sheer volume of stuff Brad and Jan had to sort through to get this concise and fairly comprehensive history of the MC5 together. It took decades. Furthermore, assembling an oral history like this, or Please Kill Me Behind Me, is one great big game of telephone. You have to call back and forth on your contacts list a lot, asking ad nauseum, "Hey man, did this thing really happen?" By far, the best instance of cross-time telephone surrounds the miniskirt thing. Wait, what? Spoiler alert, if you haven't finished reading the book or you haven't gone out and bought it yet, there will be lots of specific details in this section. Skip to this timestamp if you don't want spoilers. After this point, I can no longer be held liable for spoilers. Got it? Good, okay, we keep going. Okay, so from what I can find, the rumor in question first came from the Five's 1969 cover story in Rolling Stone magazine. Okay, this is really, really fragile. I'm opening up to the story. Eric Ehrman wrote, quote, "Lead vocalist Rob Tyner, 23. My god, they were all younger than me at the height of the Kick Out the Jams nonsense. Lifelong Motor City inhabitant. Teases his hair and wears Benchmade dancing boots. Often wears miniskirts and tights on stage." Now we have this book in which everyone swears up and down that Robin Tyner wore a skirt and Robin Tyner swore up and down that he did not wear a skirt. I was rolling on the floor laughing over Rob Tyner having nothing short of a hissy fit in print over this. And I quote, "Bullshit over me wearing a miniskirt. Goddamn lie. I wore a green sparkly shirt that was long but that had long tails on it, and I had tights on underneath and high boots, and the press said that I was wearing a fucking miniskirt. That's the one thing I really want in the book. I did not wear a fucking miniskirt." Tights aren't much better, Robert! I neglected to mention the miniskirt thing in ABH, but in retrospect, I really regret it because come on, that shit is funny. Why am I so focused on all this? Because one of the most special things about this book is that this is the most of us, meaning fans who came along after 1991, I wasn't even born yet in 1991, this is all we will ever get to hear from Rob Tyner. When I picked this up, I thought we'd hear from him a few times here and there, and that the narrative would be mostly driven by Wayne. That's how it's always been since I became a fan. Until about now, one of the most substantial resources we had on their history was this book. I use that extensively for ABH. This book's narrative is really driven by Rob. One can imagine why that's so significant to me. I was gonna have my reaction to the Five's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction in this video, but there was just way too much of their music for me to get it past the YouTube gods. But I will show you this. Oh, shit. Okay. Wait, no, not that. That's me getting jump scared by the Bulls on Parade riff. Man, me being a Rage Against the Machine fan at age 13 explains a lot, doesn't it? All right, give me a sec. Yeah, that. That's Rob's voice. My heart still stops every time I hear him speak. I wish I'd gotten my reaction to hearing Blood Brothers all the way through for the first time on film and hearing that surprise interview tacked on to the end. My reaction was, I imagine, a lot like the one you just saw. That was the first time I'd ever heard Rob speak, and I just didn't know what to do with myself. I still don't. The MC5 were all such special guys. The MC5 together were once in a lifetime, but I just can't shake Rob Tyner. I don't know why. Like Wayne said about Rob on the Track by Track podcast, there's only one of him. This book, in a lot of ways, has solved the mystery of Rob. I was also really pleased with hearing from the women of the MC5 story. Becky Tyner and Wayne's girlfriend at the time, Chris. Wives and girlfriends are kind of different tiers in the rock and roll hierarchy. There's wives, girlfriends, and groupies. We got to hear from two of the three. I really wish we'd gotten to hear from a groupie. I know they're out there, and I'm not sure why they haven't been interviewed in any official capacity or non-official. My god, Chris made young Wayne look like a jerk. Correction, young Wayne made himself look like a jerk. Chris only delivered us the picture of Wayne Kramer in 1969, and you could not tell that guy shit. He was young, talented, and hot, and he knew it. That is the definition of the guitarist's ego. This book presents two totally different Waynes at once. The one who still had a lot to learn, and the one who had to learn from his mistakes. The pictures are rolling in from the Fives exhibit at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Museum out in Ohio, and do you see what's back there? Way in the back, out of the light, to preserve what is likely very fragile fabric. Yeah, that's the shiny disco pirate shirt! At least I think it is. I have the sneaking suspicion. I thought they were all gone forever. Some guy in the comments of ABH said they were sold off. Hall of Fame, if you see this, please photograph that shirt. Take like museum catalog quality photos of that so that some random chick can study the pattern and replicate it and make her own shiny disco pirate shirts. Thank you. I am literally the only one in the world who cares about this stuff though. Target audience reached. There's a whole paragraph dedicated to how the guy's pants were designed. There's the revelation that Becky Tyner made Iggy Pop's infamous tinfoil pants, if you know, you know. A fantastic story of Wayne trying on these orange satin pants for the first time, jumping for some reason and splitting them. Lots about pants in this book. But it confirms my conclusion from last year that the clothes were such an important part of the Five stage act in the 60s. We've all seen the videos and marveled at how much energy they packed into each show. The clothes highlighted that. Fred wore fringe on his cowboy shirts. Wayne tied flags to his strat. They wore lots of sequins and lame to catch the light. They wore striped pants to show off their legs. Bright colors. Dennis would often wear just a vest because he'd be sweating buckets sat in the back. Those stage lights got hot. Rob wore these big billowing sleeves that had a beautiful motion to them when he flailed about on stage. I would commit crimes for footage of this shirt specifically. It's right up there with the shiny disco pirate shirt as my favorite he ever wore. None of the above would be confirmed or even possible without the insight of the ladies in this book. This is made all the more remarkable by all of the women independently admitting that they didn't know how to sew before this. I do know how to sew, and I can tell you that making menswear is a bitch. Those ladies put in the work to give the guys their look. Wives, girlfriends, and groupies are the reason rock and roll looks the way it does. So thank you, Brad and Jen, for cementing their importance in the Fives canon, especially Becky Tyner. Holy shit, she's the one woman I always wanted to hear from, and this book gives her her flowers. We hear from Lenny Sinclair as well. Between the clothes and the photography, such a macho band as the MC5, or the Men, as they almost name themselves. I am so glad they didn't do that. That would have been an SEO nightmare down the line. This group was filtered through a uniquely female lens. I've always picked up on that, and I've always admired it. There are still big-time revelations to be made, like Dennis being the first one to quit the band and Rob following him out of solidarity, not the other way around. I knew they were tight. I included a story about them in ABH that seriously had me bawling the first time I heard it.
Unfortunately, I was a junkie for a while. And when we were going to Europe, I cold turkeyed every, we'd go for 3 or 4 days to Germany, a couple days to France, a couple days to Belgium, a couple days to wherever, to come back to London, and I'd go straight to Chinatown and get their Chinese heroin, which is the best heroin you can buy. Through all those cold turkeys, Rob took care of me. And I'm climbing walls, he used to give me rub downs and watch over me. And I really miss him. Rob Tyner's a great person. I really miss him.
Considering the Five was really built off these guys' very real friendships. I appreciated seeing some of those friendships at play. Really, my only two unfulfilled wants from this book were Fred's perspective and a history of the making of High Time. Considering the state the band was in, I don't think we'll ever get much of a history of High Time. Everyone was way too whacked out to remember anything. Fred Smith was the main songwriter on High Time, and he had all these big plans for the Ascension thing. He had such a big hand in their later history, and we don't hear from him at all. Fred is a silent, important figure. I'm struck by how elusive a figure he remains in the MC5 history. My biggest regret from ABH is not featuring more of Michael and Fred, but to be fair, I had a really hard time finding quotes from Fred to use. From what I know, we don't see a lot of him in a true testimonial either. It seems he didn't have much of anything to say about the Five. If this book solved the mystery of Rob, it leaves the mystery of Fred unsolved. Overall, the narrative of this book is quite lopsided. You want to know how many pages it takes to get from the making of Back in the USA to the breakup of the band? 32. 32 pages to cover 3 years. 32 pages of a 270-page book. I know everyone's most interested in the Kick Out the Jams era, but 1970 to 1972 were no less active, and I would have loved to hear some drunken adventures from their Europe years. Regardless of when it stopped being fun for each individual guy, it's no wonder the MC5 imploded the way they did. They made very little money gigging relentlessly. What little money they did have at the height of their fame was funneled into a commune. A lot of times it felt like a thankless cause. Their breakup with the Sinclairs and the White Panthers is so jagged. Did one hell of a job portraying that. Some of those passages will haunt me. Then the guys ran into cosmically luck and they got beat up by heroin. Call it rock and roll's great comedy of errors. Call it Aristotle's theory of tragedy. And that's what I thought of the book. I really liked it, but Aristotle's theory of tragedy could not account for this. What do I think of Heavy Lifting? You know, I always wanted my Lester Bangs reviewing Kick Out the Jams moment, but not like this. For starters, yes, I did buy 2 copies. Let's take the plastic off of this one. One on this super cool pearlized vinyl, and the other for the limited edition disc of MC5 recordings. This was the reunion lineup I totally gushed over in ABH, with Billy Gould of Faith No More. My dad was all over that when I told him. Brendan Canty of Fugazi, Kim Thile of fucking Soundgarden, and Marcus Durant. I will never forget being so enamored watching him on KEXP that I swallowed my gum. It's still in there somewhere! This was the best reunion lineup Wayne ever assembled. It was the exact lineup needed to execute Kick Out the Jams. This tour was specifically to celebrate its 50th anniversary, but I regret to inform you that the sheer power of this lineup left me wanting more out of Heavy Lifting. We were spoiled by MC5. Daddy got me the pony for my birthday last year, and now I'm pitching a fit over getting a Barbie doll. Considering the circumstances, Heavy Lifting is very much a Wayne Kramer's MC5 album. If you go into a Wayne Kramer's MC5 album expecting an MC5 album, you're gonna be disappointed. That's not to say there isn't anything worthwhile happening on Heavy Lifting. If I had to recommend an approach to take when going into this thing, it would be this. Every once in a while, ask yourself, whose version of the MC5 am I listening to right now? The title track is absolutely Tom Morello's version of the MC5. Big, beefed up guitars, take the bull by the horns and put in the work message. I find it beautiful that the album was named for this track. The spirit of the MC5 was built on the very real friendships between the men in the band. Heavy Lifting is the product of Wayne and Tom's friendship. I can only imagine what it must feel like for Tom to have this song out now, to have one of your guitar heroes, become your good friend and then your collaborator. You get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame before your hero with music you played to invoke his ethos, all about self-sufficiency, self-efficacy, and sending a message. Then a year later, you power walk on stage in a White Panther hat and Jail Guitar Doors t-shirt, drop 4 F-bombs in 2 minutes, and induct your good friend into the Hall of Fame. Every time I hear the title track, that's what I'm gonna think about. It captures the fire of a moment that hadn't even happened yet. Thank God I haven't seen people bitching about barbarians at the gate. Every time I see some guy on the internet posting stuff like, I fly my 2024 Trump flag off the back of my truck while blasting Kick Out the Jams, I die inside a little bit. Like, do whatever you want. It's your prerogative, but did you even listen to the Human Being Lawnmower or the American Ruse? Gotta Keep Moving, Motor Cities Burning? Did you listen to anything Wayne said in interview from the last 5 years? So that's what I have to say to them. Thankfully a very small minority, but nonetheless very vocal. Musically, the Barbarian chorus feels awkward. It kinda ascends into nowhere. That irks me. If that hadn't wormed its way into the song and played itself out very quickly, I would have really liked this one. But right about now, the biggest block between me and heavy lifting starts to take shape. The production. Being an MC5 fan, you have to get used to some whack production. Kick Out the Jams is a live album. It's pretty crunchy. John Landau produced the Five's first studio album back in the USA. In trying to give the Five a really polished, tight rock and roll record, he totally gutted the material. Then Jeffrey Haslam sat behind the board for High Time, and I don't know what happened to these tapes, but the fidelity is just whack. Poor Rob sounds like he's underwater on this X. Ladies and gentlemen, we have another Back in the USA on our hands. Bob Ezrin took this material that would have sounded so full and appropriately rough live and scrubbed it so clean it wiped the patina off. I know Wayne liked that production style, it's the approach he took for Lexington, and that's okay on a jazz record, but on a rock record, it's so spiffy, it's unbearable. Being a High Time girly, it's probably the best MC5 album. I noticed attempts throughout Heavy Lifting to link it to the last album put out under this name. Change No Change invokes Poison with that crazy high falsetto, and numbers like Future Now and Miss X with attempts to mimic that weird tape stuff they were doing. It's a little disconcerting, it feels out of balance with the rest of the song. It's a real shame that element was mishandled because otherwise it's really great. Great solo, it captures the heat wave vibe that Wayne liked to do in his film score compositions. You could put this song over footage of the Five at the 68 DNC and it wouldn't feel too out of place. We get the first appearance of Vicki Randall on backing vocals. I think it's her. Whoever designed these liner notes should be drawn and quartered. She rocks the cuts she's on. I wish we got more of her. Brenda Knight, Joanne Hill, and Merlene Driscoll, the ladies on Sister Anne, were one of my personal highlights of High Time. Then we have Edge of the Switchblade, a cover of a Wayne Kramer song. Not helping the Heavy Lifting is a Wayne Kramer solo album allegations. It's funny. This is one of the most collaborative efforts on the album. We have the Alice in Chains frontman, no, not Lane Staley, the other one, and Slash dropping by, and yet this feels most like Wayne's idea of the MC5. Switchblade tells the story of the Five, but given the circumstances of Heavy Lifting's release, this version has a tragic twist. In the original version, the first verse is likely about Rob Tyner. He had some wild hair and a wild mind. He knew something about everything. He was a shaman warrior and a poet priest. He loved to dance and sing. He could rock the house with style and nerve, and he knew when to take a chance. A mainline mellow who saw the future, and he took a rebel stance. He was strong, he was not afraid, he was the edge of the switchblade. But now, coming from Wayne and William Duvall's voices on this posthumous MC5 album, This verse is also about Wayne. Do I prefer the original on the hard stuff? Yeah, but Switchblade is the sweetest moment on Heavy Lifting. It's the heart of the album, obligatory canned woos and nod to kick out the jams and all. Sure, the lyrics are funky, but as I said in ABH, there were no Dylans, Lennons, or McCartneys in the five. With Black Boots, the other critical flaw of Heavy Lifting makes itself known. At a runtime of just under 42 minutes, High Time was the longest MC5 album. It was an exploration into a territory previously unknown to the guys, with extensive overdubbing, multiple songwriters at the helm, and the whole ass Salvation Army band. Back in the USA, is 28 minutes. A tight, snappy, bratty, pop-oriented rock record. Heavy Lifting is produced with that back in the USA pop sensibility with half the energy, and it's 4 minutes longer than High Time. Heavy Lifting is just too long. Too many songs that missed the mark were included in the final track listing, Black Boots being the first of them. The awkward rock hip-hop beat? Whose idea was this? Thank God a sense of fun is back for I Am the Fun the Phony. I'm so mad Heavy Lifting didn't come with lyrics because I need that glorious piss in the sink line in print. I will be the first to say I've historically been very critical of frontmen of MC5 reunion lineups. They have some big shoes to fill. While I might not be the biggest fan of Brad Brooks's writing style personally, he took one hell of a stab at fronting this thing, and I think he did a good job. I also have to acknowledge that he wrote a batch of tunes that Wayne loved enough to put out under the MC5 name. The MC5 was Wayne Kramer's baby. He nurtured their legacy like no one else. The fact that he saw this stuff worthy enough to add to the MC5 canon speaks to their relationship. 25 Miles, cool that they covered it, but skip. Because of Your Car, skip. I believe Boys Who Play With Matches was the first single released for Heavy Lifting. I don't remember, but it was the one I responded to the most of the bunch. More than the title track and Can't Be Found, and that's probably because the song is structured like the Fives arrangement of Thunder Express, which I love. My buddy Brian and I agree that this song is just okay, but in the context of the record, it feels like a sequel song to Edge of the Switchblade, telling the story of the archetypal rebellious kids who grew up to be rock and roll rebels. I like it. Then the Dennis Thompson songs, Blind Eye and Can't Be Found. Oh God, Blind Eye. The Old Man Yells at Cloud song, as I like to call it. These damn kids with their phones and video games, they have no idea what's going on in the world. It's moments like these that highlight the stark difference between the MC5 and Wayne Kramer's MC5. The original MC5 was over by the time Wayne was 23, and listening to these sounds and these lyrics, I'm pretty sure there's not a single guy under 50 playing on Heavy Lifting. Of the two tracks Dennis is on, Can't Be Found is superior. I don't need to tell you that. Through the making of ABH, I discovered Dennis was the Five's secret weapon. He was a really unique drummer in the sense that he wouldn't set the groove, he would follow the groove, the same as everybody else. He followed that path and all of its twists and turns. I didn't realize how much I missed his playing on an MC5 record until I heard it. Just incredible drummer. Blessed Release. Fucking weird. 9 Inch Nails meets Emotional Rescue era Rolling Stones super skip. The album closes quite abruptly with Hit It Hard. Of all the nods to High Time on Heavy Lifting, this was the most overt. There's horns, there's saxophones, there's Vicky pulling one hell of a performance. Wayne really loved funk. James Brown was one of his biggest inspirations, so I have to commend him for his take on funk closing the record out. Brad Talinsky and Jan Uhelski recently appeared on the Sound Opinions podcast. On that podcast, Jan identified why Lester Bangs got Kick Out the Jams so wrong when he reviewed it. Les made the mistake of reviewing the hype instead of the album. It was an easy mistake to make. I mean, they gave the MC5 a cover story in Rolling Stone magazine with no album out. You can thank Jan Wenner's little deal with Elektra for that. Jan said every critic makes the mistake Les made. I have too. Over and over again, while listening to this album, I had to ask myself, am I reviewing Heavy Lifting or am I reviewing the hype? Can you even adequately review an album that took so long to get here? It's impossible to set the hype aside when it had over 5 decades to build. The 1960s counterculture was all about symbols, right? Heavy Lifting is more of a symbol than it is an MC5 album. Regardless of my mild but hopefully even-handed feelings on Heavy Lifting, this body of work meant so much to someone I admire and respect so deeply. Again, the MC5 was Wayne's baby, and he wanted to see this last album through. Nobody thought High Time was going to be the last MC5 album. They always thought there was going to be 4, and this is the 4th. Final verdict, I could do without the core version of Heavy Lifting. If it was 28 minutes instead of 45, I would have enjoyed it a lot more. Ironically, the deluxe version is the must-have. At the end of the day, it's amazing that I even get to make a follow-up video to ABH. I'm a 25-year-old MC5 fan, and I'm holding an album of new material under the MC5 name. In the other hand, I'm holding the book of stories I so desperately wanted to hear. And after a record 7 nominations, I got to watch my favorite band inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame on TV. I got to hear someone say the word on live TV. I just really wish the guys got to see it too. I wish they could have seen our current world. What would they have thought? What would they have said? 2 of them didn't even get to see the 21st century. I get really hung up on the fact that Mr. Future Now himself, Robin Tyner, didn't even really get to see the 90s. What would he have thought of home computers? Wireless internet, social media, streaming, crypto, NFTs, AI, what the fuck? The future is here, right now. And it all feels very final. In a way, this was the most quintessentially MC5 way things could have possibly gone. I don't know what it is about those guys, but nothing MC5 related ever comes easy. They only ever reunited because Rob died. They only ever seriously reformed because Fred died and it was time to take their legacy seriously. The documentary project that would have delivered their incredible, ridiculous story to so many new sets of eyes and ears failed for a myriad of reasons on both sides. Then the reunion lineup ended because the D in DKT died before he could even finish his book. The 5 only made it into the Hall of Fame because Wayne died, and come on. You have to admit Dennis being the last man standing is the most MC5 way things could have possibly gone. And now he's gone. They're all gone. And John Sinclair isn't even around to say anything about it because he's gone too. Unless something truly crazy happens with a True Testimonials distribution rights, I'm not holding my breath. This past weekend was the end of the line. This is it. Rock and roll's great comedy of errors is over, and we are the last ones sat in this empty goddamn theater. I'm sad it's over. I'm mad that it took this long. I'm happy that it happened at all. I'm disappointed that none of the guys get to enjoy it with us. I'm grateful for all of the fans who came before me, who got us here, who banged on the door of the Hall of Fame until they finally let our guys in. I'm grateful for the people this band has connected me with. I'm very lucky to have spoken to people credited on the insides of their albums. I'm grateful for everything they gave us. Above all, I'm in awe. Still, just as in awe as I was when I cracked open the gatefold of their first album for the first time. It sounds like Becky Tyner feels the same way. Quote, "Thinking about them, I just sit back from a place of awe." At the end of ABH, I said something like the MC5 were rock and roll's Prometheus. They took fire from the gods, brought it to us mortals, and they paid a steep price for it. The flame has dimmed significantly since the boys have all left our mortal plane for whatever is beyond us. Lately, I've been kind of contemplating what my ideas of the afterlife are like. They're pretty abstract, as you might have gathered, but I really hope that there is a rock and roll heaven, and I really hope that it looks like the Grandy in 1968, because that's where I want to go. I was gonna thug this out. Alright. Next page. Okay. I'll have to move on to being annoying about other things, like getting King Crimson in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and getting a vinyl run of, where is it? Getting a vinyl run of Blood Brothers, and hopefully writing those liner notes. But I will keep tending to the flames, but I will keep tending to the embers, because that's what I was put here to do. This band showed me my purpose for that. I will always be so grateful. Long live the mighty MC5. That's the wrong jacket. My personal favorites are I don't know, probably Edge of the Switchblade. That's it! Thank God that's over. I need to go do something else that won't break my heart. Maybe watch Impractical Jokers or something? Yeah, that always cheers me up. Who's your favorite Impractical Joker? Mine is Q. That was heavy lifting! Or MC5, A Brief History's epilogue? I don't know. I'm trying to leave space for a sequel. Oh my god, you don't know that. MC5, A Brief History was supposed to be twice as long. I was supposed to cover, you know, the brief history of the MC5, and then I was gonna cover all of their solo albums. I took one look at the price tag for all of that, especially Sonic Rendezvous Band, holy fuck, and I was like, yeah, no, I have to shelve this for later. I hope I get to make that someday. What are your thoughts on this album? What do you think of Heavy Lifting? What do you think of the MC5? Leave a comment letting me know. I would love to hear what you think about albums that I love, and remember, despite what some guy on the internet has to say, your opinion matters. If you like what I do here, you should like this video and subscribe to my channel. I post new episodes of Vinyl Monday, the series that this video is kind of part of, but also kind of not. I post new episodes every Monday at 11 a.m. and I completely forgot to mention my podcast. I co-host a show with my friend Emma. It's called The Dolls Podcast. It's about unsung lady heroes of the 60s and 70s, and we are wrapping our first season. We have a new episode up now about Uschi Obermeier. Emma wrote and translated that whole thing for us. I've written our season finale. Holy crap. We hope you'll join us for those. They'll be a lot of fun. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next week for another Vinyl Monday, and kick out the jams, motherfucker.